What I want to do is to show a quick repair on how to make this a better looking spot. Tasty. All right, so we are back on the 67.
Yes.
We got a couple other things rolling. I'm going to get on the Camaro here probably in the next couple weeks as well, but I want to go ahead and get started on some of the things on this car. We're going to be putting a 4R70W in the transmission area, but one thing that I know these cars are horrible about is this stuff here, where these two plates were put together, because Ford, they didn't dip anything. They just...
It's not going to last more than 30 years.
Yeah, it's a 5-year car. What do we care? So these almost always rust out in these areas right where this plate for the apron comes in to the second plate. They sandwiched it, they put 4 spot welds in it, and they called it good to go. No kind of thing in between there to keep them from rust, and they didn't care about it. We are not going to completely tear this thing apart. What I want to do is to show a quick repair today on how to make this a better looking spot. Because otherwise what you have to do is you have to go in and replace all of these apron pieces. And it's just a lot of work. You can go in and make a huge patch out of it, but what I want to try to do today is to show a way to do it without having to go in and replace an entire section of this upper apron. So I guess all we can do is just get on it. Now what I'm thinking about on these is taking and doing hole saws here and here to make it a round setup, because when you're welding, one of the things a lot of guys don't realize is if you make a square patch,
it like sucks the heat pretty much in.
Right into that corner when you get to that, until you get to that last corner, so it can be a real problem. So that's kind of where I'm thinking.
But on the other side, we can, the easier way is to cut out the first layer, since this is double layer here. So we could cut out the first layer with a Dremel and just patch the top layer if the bottom layer is not affected. Yeah, and on this, I've been feeling around, the bottom layer feels pretty solid. So I think both sides, the bottom layer feels...
Yeah, I think probably if I were going to do that, because this one has spot welds within where my hole saw is.
And this one's like right...
That one I think we can get away with a hole saw. The other one, this one, we probably will do what you're talking about with the Dremel and cut a patch to fit the size of the area.
And one thing we can do to help the corners not blow out is drill the first layer, just start it with a drill bit. So it rounds the corners a smidge.
Just a smidge. Yeah, we're going to probably have to go with a little bit bigger than this, though, to get those corners to run the way we want it to. All right. We'll do it your way on one and my way on the other.
Deal.
Deal? Yeah, don't grab my hand with that. Let's get some tools. All right, if I'm going to be sparking and welding, I'm going to want to go in and protect the paint on this car, because it's not my car. Cam and I typically don't worry. We haven't had anything nice enough to worry about this lately.
None of my stuff's nice enough to worry about it anyway.
Pull that up just a little bit. And I'll rearrange this in a second to get it where it's protecting everything better. All right, I got a little bit of carpet I'm going to pull in here in a second. I'm just going to do that off camera. I'm going to cover up over here. Throw the carpet up on the roof just to protect the roof from any kind of damage. So let me get that going. All right, so I've got my hole saw, and I'm going to place it over the top of where my spot is, and I'm going to mark it with a punch. This is a centering punch. I don't have one quite big enough. This is going to be somewhat of a gamble. After watching Cam put the strut rod setup in, I'm going to do this one myself. I just blew down through it too. All right, I think what I'm going to do then is I'm going to grab my drill motor, I'm going to set it and just drill my guide hole into it. What I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to get this to where it's not on the spot welds, but on the spots where we got a problem. This is what I'm really bad at, is drilling. Look at that crunchy. Now this is just a guide hole. And I'm going to now put together my setup for my hole saw. And I'm going to put on my safety glasses before I start doing this because this is going to send shards flying all kind of different directions. Now the cool thing I'm seeing here is I've got good fresh metal coming up. It's not all rusty crap. And that's on that second piece down there in the bottom. Woo! All right, now what I want to show you is you can see where I've got rust popping around these corners here and right here. So I am as far down on this section of it as I want to go. I'm going to take this and now I'm going to kind of lean over toward the backside more. Okay, pretty good all the way around. One last little section right here. There we go. It just popped loose. Tasty. All right, next up is a wire wheel to clean this off a little bit and see what we got down there in the bottom. This is actually fairly thin metal. This is the metal from the apron. That metal on this section here is just a little bit thicker, I believe, but I could be completely wrong about that. But that's this removed, so we're going to take that now and we'll cut a hole to set back down in there to weld back into place with another piece of sheet metal. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my trim hammer here now that we've got this off, and I'm just going to tap this to make sure we got good solid steel. Kind of root it around a little bit before I go after it with a wire wheel.
Now I'm just going to vacuum it up.
Pretty good at that. I'll take that steel. Whee! And that's the problem you can run into. This is
that's why you don't wear shirts when you're using grinders and stuff.
Also, if you have a beard, that can be a problem. Before you can make it neat, you got to make a mess.
You know, I tried that excuse about cleaning my room one time.
How'd that work? Mom's still with you, but
yeah. A little bit of sucky.
Yeah. I should call her.
Just keeps reminding me of it, man.
I have to get a anvil for it. What I'm doing now is, because these spot welds were put in, and when the spot weld the metal, it'll actually cave the area around it. I don't want to have to work too much around that if I don't need to, so I'm going to take my hammer and drop these edges if I can. I'm also, with that, hopefully hammering out some of the rust that's underneath there too. There we go. After we get this repair complete, there's a product that 3M makes called cavity wax, and we're going to throw some cavity wax down here. I'm also going to take this and I'm going to probably go to the center and hit it just a little bit with one of my bigger hammers to make that drop some so that I can get the cavity wax in there, and then I will go in and pull this back into position and probably just do something to fill that hole up. I may not do too much of anything. The cavity wax should take care of any potential rust problems we have between the two pieces. I learned that in my Finish Master classes. I'm going to do my level best to keep this patch that we're going to make here as square as we possibly can, but round the corners off a little bit. I find a lot of times if these corners are square, it'll just blow that corner right off of it when you put a weld spot on it. I'm going to put my drill, my dot spot here. As soon as I see rust pop up like I did right there, I stop because that tells me I've gone through that first layer of metal. There we go. First layer of metal. Go through, and like on this one I didn't have a good dimple, so I put a dimple in it. Rust spot again. I'm going to try to run straight out across there with my Dremel tool. By the way, what did we do before we got Dremel tools? Just saying. What I'm looking for is a rust bloom to come up out of this. Tasty. All right, we're going to do the same thing on this one that we did on the other one, where we go in and scrape around and beat around and see what we got as far as where this panel is at. And we'll use this to make our template with. All right, I've got my piece of sheet steel that I used to make my patch for the front section. And what I'm going to just do is I'm going to scribe this with an awl, or a scribe, depending on how you want to call it. And then I'm going to take and cut that out with my Dremel tool. All right, because I had one of the crew grab my full face mask because it had Logan's tiny little head in it. I had to change the size. Because I'm having to look down on this to see where my cut line is, I'm going to have my full face mask on as well. A little bit of air around it, but that's kind of what I want. I don't want it to be sucked right up to the edge of it. Some guys are okay with that. And there's our patch for this one. I'm going to probably have to work this a little bit to get it to lay in the way the original metal is. It needs to kind of be bent over. I'm going to have to go and grind this off on my grinding wheel. All right, I'm going to clamp this one in. I've already got the other one centered through with a bolt. I did put a hole in the bottom plate on this. The reason I did that is I want to be able to put some of the 3M cavity wax in there. That should be good enough to hold it in place. I'm going to do a test tack on this one here. Right there. I'm keeping my wire cut fairly short. cold. Cam, come and look at this. What's it doing when it's blowing down in the center like that?
Well, I think you're running hella high wire speed. Sounds real high to me.
Yeah, I'm probably down
Drop
to
it down to
6.
6, yeah.
Okay. Still too hot. This is a case where I should have tested this before I ran it. All right, because we have the old nasty metal on the underneath, I think that's what's causing these problems with our weld here. We've gone through and tried a couple of different settings, and the only thing that seems to work is we weld the crap on here first, and then we come back in and we weld in over the top of it to get a good clean weld out of it. It's just really going porous because there's so much contamination in the old steel. This would be a good argument for going in and cutting that bottom section all the way out as well and welding in a patch on it from the underside and then coming up here and welding this. But we're already committed, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with this. What I would say maybe I would have done differently is to use a slightly larger plug on the underside of this, but you have the same problem because then you have the contaminated metal on the top. All right, what actually seemed to be working, what actually seemed to be working the best on this was to go in and weld starting on my former weld and weld over that and move forward. That actually seemed to clean the welds up pretty good, but you can still see spots like, let me find something I can point with here. Now, for instance, we have a porous spot right here in the weld that's coming from the stuff underneath this area. Now I'm going to go in and grind this one down and take a look at what we've got. Everything seems to have stayed pretty flat. Because we're welding a fairly thick piece of metal to a fairly thick piece of metal, you usually don't have as big a problem with it wanting to warp. If this was a single piece of sheet steel, I would not have done what I did here. Probably take some crap for this one, but I'm telling you what, most of what happened here before, these are new spots that I put in. There's a little bit of pooching from what's underneath because what I'm dealing with is trying to cover up that nasty metal underneath it. So you see little well, tits coming up.
Noise!
And that's exactly what you got going on. If you guys have any tips, you guys that are welders like Keith of Fire, a couple of these other guys that are on here a pretty good bit talking to me, give me some tips. Something to keep in mind of when you're doing this is trying to keep those spot welds where you can see them, because that's going to be important to a guy who may be looking at this car who knows something about these.
Loses part of its history, but then again, it's an Inner Fender. It's not Concourse. Who cares?
I care. I do. I care.
Kylie was just here. I can tell you he doesn't care.
He just wants to drive it. He didn't care about all this stuff I'm doing. He's like, yeah, whatever, man. So anyway, we're going to have to go in and finish up this other one doing the same thing. I'm not going to show you that because, quite frankly, it's just the same thing. The
grind
patch,
weld, grind weld.
Yeah, the patch and the patch. There's two different styles of doing it. We've shown you both. Now you know. So we're done and we're out with that part of it. Also, check out the Patreon account. At the $10 a month level, you get monthly meetings with me. Now, if we've done anything at all on the show to help you out, and you're getting something from these on a monthly basis, if you're getting anything from these on a monthly basis, you might want to think about going out and putting a little money toward us. You don't have to do the $10 a month level like a lot of guys do, where they get the monthly meetings with me. If you just want to put $2 in, we'll take $2. We're not proud. It also goes to help pay Andrew and the young guys that come in here on Saturdays. We get the food for them, and we give them a little bit of money to come in here because teens today just do not want to do anything if there's not a buck involved.
Or a cell phone.
Or a cell phone involved, which we get them excited because sometimes we do, in fact, use cell phones to film with, so that kind of
want to do that part.
Yeah. Also, subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 100,000 subscribers. You'll stop hearing about all this. As soon as we get there, we'll just put a little thing at the very front with that other piece of lower third that we do. You won't hear about this from me ever again. We're like 98,500. So we're danger close. I'm hoping by February 19th, 18th, somewhere in there, we get the whole thing so we have the ability to have the plaque so that we can say to Deanna, this is your birthday present. This is all for you. This is all for you.
I'm going to hang this in my office.
I'm going to hang it out here. You see how this is going to go badly. Anyway, so that's what I want you to do. Check out, subscribe to the channel. Do me another favor, folks. Be kind to each other, love each other, treat each other nice. We'll see you next time on Autorestomod. Grind, weld. Grind, weld.
Yeah, that's...
Man, this is why I like to buy cars that are not rusty.
Why let other people do my shit?
I don't mind it. The really weird thing is we didn't have as much of this kind of problem with the Galaxy that we did, and that was all old shit.
Yeah, that was big. Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe we've got something that's in the wire wheels that's contaminating the metal, got some grease or something on it, we don't know.
Yeah.
We need a new welder. Lincoln, Miller, hey, look a guy up. Eastwood. Eastwood, if you want to get us a MIG welder that'll outdo this Lincoln, we'll take and put the Lincoln to the side, or no, I want to gift it to somebody.
Something that you don't like.
No, actually, for some people, that's probably going to be a great welder. For me,
you ever seen those videos on Facebook of like people in China that are trying to sell a product? That's the kind of welder that they...
No, I think I hesitate to blame the welder because it's like blaming the gun if you're a shooter. Yeah. I know that there's probably something I'm doing wrong, and I'm sure that like
this is 100% contaminated metal.
It's contaminated metal. It's bad. It's not just the metal. It's got to be. We've gone on far too long. You guys have a great week.